Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the soundscape of a normal city. There's traffic, the constant hum of engines, the occasional horn. There are voices, people talking, laughing, arguing. There's infrastructure, air conditioning units, construction equipment, the distant rumble of a subway. There are birds, wind through trees, footsteps on pavement. These sounds create what acoustic researchers call the urban sound environment, and your brain has evolved to process this constant auditory information as normal, as safe, as evidence of human presence and activity. Now imagine all of that disappears. Completely. You're standing in the middle of a city designed for 50,000 people, surrounded by apartment buildings, schools, hospitals, and shops, but there's no sound, except your own breathing and the crunch of broken glass under your boots. This is Pripyat, and the silence here isn't just an absence, it's a presence. It's thick, oppressive, and psychologically devastating. Researchers studying the psychological effects of abandoned environments have found that Pripyat induces a specific form of acute existential dread faster and more intensely than almost any other location on Earth. Why? Because the human brain interprets this level of silence as fundamentally wrong, as a violation of what urban spaces should be. When acoustic researchers measure sound levels in Pripyat, they record readings between 20 and 30 decibels in many interior spaces, quieter than a whisper, approaching the threshold of human hearing. For comparison, a normal city environment averages 60 to 80 decibels. This dramatic acoustic void triggers immediate neurological responses. Your amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, activates, because throughout human evolutionary history, absolute silence meant danger, predators, ambush, isolation from the protection of the group. Your brain doesn't know you're in an abandoned city, it just knows something is profoundly wrong, and it floods your system with stress hormones accordingly. But it's not just the silence that destroys your psychological equilibrium, it's the context. You're walking through spaces that were designed for specific human activities, and everywhere you look, there's evidence of interrupted life. A classroom with chairs still arranged in neat rows, textbooks on desks open to April 25, 1986. A hospital with patient files scattered across floors, medical equipment rusting in place, dosimeters still hanging on hooks. An apartment with a table set for dinner, children's toys in a corner, a calendar frozen at the moment evacuation orders came. This creates what psychologists call temporal distortion, the sensation that time has stopped or broken. Normally, we perceive time as linear and continuous. Past leads to present leads to future. But in Pripyat, you're surrounded by objects and spaces that exist in a perpetual present tense past. Nothing has moved forward since April 1986. The decay you're seeing isn't progress toward a future state. It's entropy consuming a frozen moment. Your brain struggles to process this, and the result is a profound sense of disorientation. Visitors frequently report feeling as though they've stepped outside of time, or that they're walking through a photograph, or that reality itself has become unstable. The psychological impact is intensified by the juxtaposition of functionality and dysfunction. These aren't ancient ruins where the original purpose has been lost to time. You understand exactly what each space was designed for. You can visualize the children who sat in those classrooms, the patients who occupied those hospital beds, the families who lived in those apartments. But that understanding makes the emptiness more devastating. You're forced to confront the sudden, total erasure of human presence. 50,000 people evacuated in 3 hours, taking nothing with them, never to return. The spaces weren't gradually abandoned. They were violently interrupted, and that interruption is still palpable 40 years later. There's a specific term in environmental psychology, existential isolation, defined as the awareness of being fundamentally alone in one's experience of existence. Pripyat creates this sensation more powerfully than almost anywhere else, because you're experiencing profound isolation on multiple levels simultaneously. You're physically isolated, often the only person in a building designed for hundreds. You're temporally isolated, trapped in a moment that the rest of the world has moved past. You're experientially isolated. No one else in your life truly understands what this feels like unless they've been here. And you're cosmically isolated, confronted with evidence that human civilization, for all its permanence and solidity, can be erased in a single afternoon. Psychologists who study extreme environments note that Pripyat visitors typically experience a mental shift about 20 to 30 minutes into their exploration. The initial curiosity and fascination gives way to what they describe as overwhelming vulnerability. The scale of the emptiness becomes oppressive. You start noticing how small you are compared to these massive decaying structures. You become hyper-aware of your own heartbeat, your own breathing, the fragility of your own existence. The environment strips away the psychological buffers we normally maintain, the sense that we're significant, that we're permanent, that we matter on any cosmic scale. In Pripyat, you're just another temporary arrangement of atoms that will eventually return to dust, just like these buildings, just like the lives that were lived here. What makes Pripyat uniquely terrifying on a psychological level is that the decay is active, not passive. These aren't stable ruins that will remain unchanged for centuries. The structures are actively failing. Ceilings collapse without warning. Floors sag and crack under weight they once supported easily. Stairwells that were safe last year are death traps this year. The buildings are dying, and you're witnessing their death in real time. This transforms the environment from a passive historical site into what some researchers call an active agent of psychological tension. The ruins aren't just showing you decay, they're threatening you with it. Every creaking beam, every crumbling wall, every unstable floor forces you to confront your own mortality and physical fragility. You're not just observing entropy abstractly, you're potentially about to be crushed by it. This constant, low-level physical danger keeps your nervous system in a state of hypervigilance, amplifying every other psychological stressor the environment produces. The psychological effects of Pripyat don't end when you leave. Researchers tracking visitors report persistent impacts for weeks or months afterward. Difficulty sleeping, intrusive thoughts about impermanence and mortality, a heightened awareness of environmental sounds that were previously ignored, and a lingering sense of what several described as having seen behind the curtain of civilization's stability. But there's value in that psychological disruption. Modern urban existence insulates us from confronting fundamental realities about impermanence, fragility, and the temporary nature of everything we build. We live in spaces designed to feel permanent and stable, surrounded by people and noise that confirm our significance and continuity. Pripyat strips away those comforting illusions. It forces you to experience, viscerally and undeniably, what the end looks like. Not the end of you personally, but the end of the collective human project of building, organizing, and inhabiting space. The silence of Pripyat isn't just an absence of sound, it's a message about the provisional nature of human presence in the world. Every city, every civilization, every structure we build is temporary. We're all living in a future Pripyat. We just don't know when the evacuation order will come or what form it will take. That's the psychological lesson encoded in the eerie, echoing emptiness. Not that disaster is inevitable, but that nothing human is permanent, and confronting that reality, truly feeling it in your bones as you stand in absolute silence in a dead city, changes how you understand your place in the world.